Hey, there was a good, nice little moment of transition. Let's get her started, ladies and gentlemen. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Purple and Gold Bar Show. I am your host, Supreme Overlord, aka Mr. AI Man 3000, aka Mr. Purple and Gold Bars, at your service. And we're back at it with another live recalculation of the Week 12 power rankings, trying to make the most accurate power rankings that you'll find here on YouTube. So let's see what we're at, what we're working with. And this is where we were left off last week. So pretty decent, if I do say so myself, but we're going to have to rework it. So let's get the intro started and let's go. Hey, what's going on, MJ? Thanks for tuning in, buddy. But all right, we're going to get started here, this live recalculation, because as we're getting closer to the end of the season, this is starting to become easier and easier. So I don't imagine it being a long heartache or a long recalculation like it was at the beginning of the season, where it was almost an hour at some point, just because there was so much to kind of figure out or see or read between the lines. Now everything is kind of settling down, and I think my being able to have the best picks last week out of all the weeks prior is definitely an indication that the league is starting to settle down here a little bit. But let's get some of the easy ones out of the way. I'm going to put the Rams up here. I'm going to move the Seahawks to third. I'm going to switch. I'm going to leave the Colts here. Like I said last week, the Colts are going to hold my fifth spot for a while because I don't want to make the mistake of dropping them too low because of a loss and then having to hike them all the way up, or putting them too high and then having them have a bad loss. I think 5 is a good spot until we kind of know more as these more crunch time games start to happen. So we're going to leave them at 5. We're going to flip-flop the Eagles with the Lions because of what happened this week. They're essentially the same team. So these 3 teams in the middle here are basically the same. At any given time, they could rise to the top. At any given time, they could fall to the bottom. So we're going to leave them where they are, and just a couple minor swaps there. We're moving the LA Rams to the top here. They just beat my number 1 team last week, the Seahawks. They've been doing fantastic. And then the New England Patriots definitely came out with another big win this week, so they're going to have to move up to the second spot based on how well they're playing. The Seahawks are still a great team, you know. Big game Sam has emerged. As Vikings fans, we already know, we knew that this is what we're going to expect coming out of Sam Darnold late in the year when the lights are the brightest and the stakes are the highest. This is where he can't help himself, and he is his own worst enemy. And it's going to take, I think, this season and next season of growth in these type of games before we can honestly say the worst is behind him and he can be more than just a competent quarterback in these types of games. It's the biggest reason why us Minnesota Vikings fans are, the majority should be at least, happy that we moved on, and why the organization itself decided not to bring him back. Because who cares if we would have won 13, 14, 15 games, whatever it was, and made it in the playoffs, if we're just going to get embarrassed in the divisional round or worse, you know. So no sense in that. We just got to rip the Band-Aid off, let JJ develop and become the guy that he's going to become the more games that he plays. So, but that's not going to make me think anything less of this team just because Sam has had some bad games. It's still the regular season. He's still going to have some very winnable games in the upcoming weeks here. There's just going to be a handful of spots where we're going to have to keep an eye on. Let's see how he does, because this is where it really matters for Sam going forward. But I think third overall is definitely a good spot for these Seahawks. And like I said, these first three spots are maybe not fluid, but I think anyone could make an argument for any one of these three teams to be the number one team in the NFL. So that's why, to me, 1 to 3 are basically the same spot. And then again, similar 4 to 6 here are also reserved for a similar situation where we got with the Eagles, the Colts, and the Lions, because they have different flaws or different hurdles or obstacles to overcome in order to regain that dominance that they once had, either at the start of the year or in previous seasons, right? But great teams nonetheless, 1 through 6. The next thing we got to look at here is we got to move the Bills back up. We got to recalculate the Chargers here. We got to move the Bears up at least here. You know what? I think we're going to go there. We're going to actually move the Buccaneers here. On the outside, looking into the top 12. I haven't decided if the Green Bay Packers are better than them just yet. They are so injured, and things are just not going well for the Packers. So maybe 12 is probably the good thing. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are starting to get healthier, right? So this last stretch of the season is going to be crucial for them. They got a guy that can put on the cape and carry the team when needed. Now he just needs a healthy roster to back him up. And this time of season, you need that roster. You can't just overcome like Baker was doing earlier in the season with 4th, 5th, 6th string receivers and still coming away with some impressive wins, right? The Bears, I don't think we can put them ahead of the Broncos, because I think head-to-head, if the Broncos play the Browns, the Broncos are going to beat them just because their defense is just much better. They're the best defense, if not the second best defense in the league. And I think that would be a massive factor when it comes to this. And then all they need to do is make it so that Caleb has a game like he had last week, where he just struggles all the way around, doesn't put up a lot of yards, and just barely scrapes away with a win. I don't think that would happen against this Broncos defense. And then Bo Nix comes alive in those situations where the tides turn at the end of the game, and he can just kind of snipe a win there. I'm not sure if it's going to be a winning formula for the playoffs for the Broncos, but as for right now in the regular season, I think the Broncos are definitely a better team than the Bears, even though the Bears have climbed up from the middle of the pack, 13 to 24, all the way up into the top 10. So that's got to be commended for what they've been able to do. Even though they are on a last place schedule, you play who's in front of you, and for this week, they're number 10. The Steelers are doing okay, and they're number 9, actually, not number 10, sorry. The Steelers are going in at number 10 because they're in that kind of same situation where I think the Bills is probably the most accurate placement right now, because we really don't know what they are. We know that Josh Allen can go for video game numbers, 6 touchdowns this week, but we also have seen him in such situations losing to the Patriots when we didn't know that the Patriots were the way that they are right now, and then to the Dolphins, right, and as well as the Falcons. So there are some head scratchers there, but at the same time, we know that if the situation folds the way the Bills, they can easily outscore anyone. So I think that right there at number 7 is a great spot for them. I'm not saying that they can't beat the Eagles, the Colts, or the Lions. I just think that those 3 teams overall are a better roster or team in this situation, despite of how flawed they are. compared to these Bills because they're also flawed as well. So looking pretty good. Those teams right there. We're gonna leave these teams. We're gonna move that. We'll move those guys up here. We're basically a mirror image of ourselves. We're our worst enemies. Basically every single loss. It's been at our own fault or inability to perform, both the Jaguars and the Vikings. But what do we do with these Chargers? Because they're a bit of a conundrum, right? Because if their O-line was healthy and Joe Alt was playing for the rest of the year, I think they would still be in the top 10, maybe even taking that Bills spot right there and staying ahead of them and keeping the Bills, Broncos, and Bears and Steelers at bay, because Justin Herbert's been playing lights out, and when their O-line is fully healthy, they are a heck of a team. So it's kind of a weird situation to have with these. So I'm gonna put them here, just giving them the benefit of the doubt at 13, because, like I've been saying before this game, and I feel like I should have read taken my own speculation. When it came to last week's picks, where I felt like I was a little bit riding too high on the Chargers after a win with their newly traded tackle that's coming in replacement for Joe Alt. And I even said, I think that they're doing really well with him and that they can do some good stuff, but just like when we lost Christian Darrisaw last year and we traded for Cam Robinson at the trade deadline, he had some good games, he had some bad games, he had some mediocre games, all in between. And it was very hard to be able to predict what these guys could be. And I should have anticipated that this was a type of situation in which they would struggle, especially against a team that can stop the run when they don't have their starting running backs right now. They're so injured at the running back position, right? So I should have been able to foresee that the Jaguars are going to be able to make that a one-dimensional offense and make them struggle as much as they did. When your O-line is that banged up, we've seen it as Minnesota Vikings fans. When our O-line was as worse as it was, it looked like we were one of the worst teams in the league. And now that our O-line is better, our defense, the whole roster looks like a solid, good team. We're always fighting in games. And that's the difference between an O-line. Now, we just have to be able to deal and live with the growing pains that J.J. McCarthy has. So very difficult to judge these Chargers. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they climbed up a little bit and dropped a little bit the entire way the rest of the season just because of their left tackle situation. But they're still all around a good team, talent-wise and record-wise. So we're going to keep them there at 13. Now, we're going to keep the Green Bay Packers at 12. We're going to keep the Buccaneers at 11 because they are on the outside looking in. The Buccaneers have suffered a couple losses in the last couple weeks where a lot of people, including myself, thought that in the moments where it would count, Baker Mayfield would kind of put the cape on and win, and it was just a little bit too much for him to overcome at times, which is totally fine. When they're injured as bad as they were, and you don't have Mike Evans like a top tier receiver, it can make a really big factor, especially with a young rookie. As great as Mbuka has been, there have been moments where they've struggled because of not having Mike Evans out on the field. So hopefully now that they're getting more healthier, and their defense is still pretty sneaky. A lot of people don't want to give their defense credit, but I've seen what they've been able to do against great offenses. So that's why we're going to keep them just on the outside looking in. We're going to hedge our bets a little bit that they still belong in this top 12 bracket, and after this week that'll be a lot clearer. The middle of the pack is kind of a little bit of a mishmash. A lot of these teams, I feel like when you match them up, it's basically any given Sunday, right? Every team has a strength and they have a significant weakness, right? So the Chargers with missing Joe Alt, right? The Ravens with their defense that, so many people want to say is revitalized or whatever the case is. They haven't really done it against really good teams yet. So we're yet to see what that's going to look like going forward. Kansas City, like I was saying before the season, this is the season that they're going to look the most beatable, and look at their record. Look at what other teams have been able to do. But I've also been saying if they manage to get into these playoffs, regardless of what the seeding is, they are still wily. They still have experience, and they might be able to steal a game or two and kind of, make it or fake it till they make it into a deep playoff run, right? Just because they have such talent, they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Even if he hasn't played at that level, he is still Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid together. Travis Kelce, all the guys, if everything goes according, they all play at a high level, they can be a very, very good team, but they are flawed just like the 49ers. I mean, you know what? Actually, hold on. Let's bring the 49ers here. We're going to leapfrog the 49ers because I think the 49ers are an extremely good team. The reason why it's hard for me to put them in the... maybe they can... You know what? We're going to do it. I'm going to second guess myself. I'm bringing Green Bay down. I'm bringing San Fran here at 12. We're going to put Green Bay at 13, not because their record or nothing like that. It's just because of all the injuries. Now that we've seen how drastic not having Tucker Kraft is, and then all the injuries that they're having, it is very hard to kind of bank on them. They're very gettable. They're extremely flawed. And so maybe they fit more so in the 13 to 24 because of what everybody else is, right? Against any one of these teams, I think if you match any one of these teams here, it's going to be a close game for different reasons, right? So you match up against the Green Bay, they're going to make a game out of it, even though they're missing all their guys, and they're going to keep it close. Same thing with the Chargers, same with the Ravens, Chiefs, Vikings, Jaguars, Panthers, Texans, Falcons, Giants, Cardinals, as well as the Cowboys, right? All different reasons in which they can make games into a winnable situation for themselves, but they are struggling with some massive issues that they need to overcome in order to be considered a really, really good team. They got great potential. They've got great pieces, but there's just some things that are way more easily exploited than any of these guys in the top 12. The 49ers, they are a great team. The cool thing about the 49ers is that they are a team that has learned how to fight through adversity over the last few years. They've suffered injuries. They've suffered just about every bit of the gambit, right? Bad losses. They've been in games where they got punched in the mouth against teams that people thought they would easily beat, and then all of a sudden, things haven't gone their way. But because they've had all those experiences, and now we're looking to see how that is paying off dividends, right? They are, regardless of missing out Hall of Famers in Fred Warner or some of their star players like Joey Bosa, guys like that, you know what I mean? And without Purdy, and now with back with Purdy, they're able to find ways to win and overcome adversity, and that's the sign of a true team that's really ready for contending for Super Bowls, and that's what they've been trying to become. They've made it to Super Bowls, and they really want to win one with this iteration of the team. Now, I just don't know if the injuries are going to be so massive to them that in the playoffs, it's going to be too much for them to overcome. But let's be real. As of right now in the league, they are definitely a top 12 team. You might be able to argue a little bit higher, 10th. You might be able to say they're better than the Bucks, the Steelers. You might be able to even say that they're better than the Bears. But regardless, I think they belong here in the top tier of the power rankings. And then the bottom of the barrel is the bottom of the barrel. It is what it is. They are who we thought they were. And there hasn't been too much movement in the lower tiers. And I haven't really been looking to recalculate any of these. Not that that it's not due. It's just that, to me, 25 to 32 are basically the same spot. There's no difference between any one of those rankings. So we're not going to waste our time trying to move around and see which piece of crap smells worse than the other. You know what I mean? Not going to worry about that right now. The middle of the pack is a little bit of the same. It's just too nuanced, and it's like, well, if the Chiefs play the Texans, it's an easy win. But if they play against the Ravens or against the Packers or against the Vikings, it's going to be, those defenses are going to give them some hard time. If you look at the Baltimore Ravens, the Vikings gave them a hell of a game. They didn't let Lamar Jackson be Showtime. know, it's just there's a myriad of reasons, and it just becomes too nuanced. And although I don't think 13 to 24 are essentially the same team, I think they're all in similar situations where we moved a little bit around here, but they are who they are. Maybe we can do something like this. So let's bring the Giants there. There you go. We made a little bit more of an adjustment here at 13 and 24. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed the power rankings this week for you guys. It's getting a little bit quicker. Oh, look at that. We did it in about 20 minutes. Look at that, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, power rankings all done. Let's check it out, and we're going to move on. We'll be back in a little while for our Week 12 weekly picks live. I will catch you guys on the next one.